next example, we have a certain mathematical function and we're just naming it f. And we say this function takes a given number, multiplies it by 2, and then add 5 to it in order to obtain the output for the function over here. And in this case, we are thinking about what are the inputs for the function over here. And in this particular scenario, we're just saying we're going to give it a number and it's going to do operations with it. And we didn't give any restriction for the numbers over here, so it could be any number that we have been working with, which is all the real numbers over here. So we can say the input is all the elements in the real number set over here. You can say it's all real numbers. That's the input we're considering. And now for the outputs, when we're doing operations to a real number by multiplying by 2 and then add 5, our end result should remain as a real number. So we can say that the outputs for this function is still going to be all real numbers. These are all possible as a result over here. In this case, it could be a decimal, could have radical, which means it could be a square root number or things like that over here. So in this case, we can say it's all real numbers for the inputs and outputs both. And now we can consider some specific inputs and outputs in this scenario. So if we have the input of 5 and we want to figure out the output over here, what we want to do is we want to take the number 5 and we want to multiply this by 2 and then add 5 to the result. And this end result should give us the output based on the description. So while I'm writing down this expression, I'm following the steps that I was told to do. We multiply this by 2 first and then add 5 to the result in order to get the output. So times 2 plus 5 is what we get. And as a result, we should get the output being 5 over here. So that's going to be the output. And now for what we get if we input the number -3, we would get -3, and again we're multiplying by 2, then add 5. If we calculate it, we get -6 plus 5, which would be -1 as the output over here. So the final answer would be -1 here. Now, on the other hand, we're thinking about what do you need to input in order to get an output of 7 over here. So now we're thinking about essentially solving an equation in the process in order to find out what number we need to put in order to get the output. And while we observe what we did in parts C and D, we notice that for any number we put in, let's call this number x, we're going to multiply x by 2 and add that result, that product, by 5. And in this case, we want the final answer to be equal to 7. And our goal here is to find x in the process. And to find x, we are just solving a linear equation. By now, we have done a lot of these, but here if we want to get x by itself, we want to get 2x by itself first. So we can get 2x is equal to 2 first by subtracting 5 on both sides. Then we can divide both sides by 2 and we'll get x is equal to 1. So therefore we would say the input is equal to 1 over here. Is equal to 1 over here. And similarly, if we want the output to be -3, we're also thinking about if I have a different input, x over here, or you can really call it anything, let's call it a, for example. And we would want to multiply a by 2 and add 5 in order to get the number -3. To get the final answer, we can again solve the equation the same way by subtracting 5 first, and we'll get 2a. -3 minus 5 would be -8. Now divide everything by 2, we will get a is equal to -4 over here. So here we would get the input is equal to -4 as a result over here. Because we didn't specify what variable we're using as the input, you can kind of assign the variable on your own and figure out what exactly we have as the inputs over here.